Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sejahtera kepada semua sahabat. Hobin Jang Hobin. Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim ditanya oleh 5 orang daripada negara yang berbeza. 5 negara bertanya dengan dia 7 soalan. Dia jawab dengan santai, dia jawab dengan tenang, dia jawab dengan fakta. Yang paling best sekali, satu dewan tu bertepuk tangan dengan jawapan dia tu. Yang paling istimewa tu tak ada baca teks langsung, tak ada pegang teks langsung. Jawab secara spontan, sebut nama pemimpin-pemimpin ni, sebut nama orang-orang ni, sebut dengan fakta. Menjawab dengan penuh santai, tak ada gagap-gagap, tak ada tanya lain, jawab lain. Inilah pemimpin level dunia. Pemimpin yang perlu kekal, yang perlu ada dalam Malaysia ni. Jangan menafikan fakta. Kau orang tak suka dia, itu kau punya pasal. Itu kau orang punya hati perut. Kan? Tak ada kena-mengena. Tetapi perlu diakui, dia pemimpin yang bertaraf dunia. Bayangkan 5 negara, soalan berbeza-beza. 7 soalan berbeza-beza dapat dijawab dengan sempurna. Kita tengok sendiri video dia, sahabat. Tengok macam mana Perdana Menteri kita. Bagaimana PMX kita, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. Dengan tenang, dengan santai je menjawab soalan yang dikemukakan oleh wakil-wakil 5 buah negara, 7 soalan. Agi hidup, agi ngelaban.
Let me start with one of our young leaders from the Philippines, Robert Joseph Medillo.
Thank you very much for your very insightful, principled, and inspiring remarks, Prime Minister. My question is about the Laconia Shoal. Malaysia has been actively exploring and exploiting oil and gas resources in the area around the shoal, as it is rightfully part of its continental shelf, and it is within its exclusive economic zone. China has, of course, made an open criticism of Malaysia regarding this issue based on its illegal 10-dash line. Your Excellency, what is Malaysia's most recent view or position about this issue? How are you handling this considering your robust economic relations with China? What are the challenges and or progress made, if any, to date? Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. And from Myanmar, get Aung from Myanmar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your thoughtful remark. So I have the 2 questions regarding the Myanmar, possible election. So in Myanmar, the State Administration Council has indicated plan to hold their election under their constitution and the electoral framework. So what will be the Malaysia position as the ASEAN chair on any possible election conducted by the SAC? And there is another scenario. If the China and some other ASEAN member states choose to endorse their SAC organized election, how will the Malaysia as an ASEAN chair respond to such division within the bloc? Thank you.
Thank you. And from China, Qizang.
Thank you, Dr. Chipman. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. In your speech, you emphasize the ASEAN centrality. Nowadays, however, the United States is imposing high tariff upon ASEAN countries, trying to press them to take side. So, as the leader of the rotating chair of ASEAN, what can you do to make sure that ASEAN continues to play a central role in the region? Thank you.
I'll take one more perhaps before coming back to the Prime Minister. Gatra Priyandita from Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chairman, and thank you, Prime Minister Anwar, for your remarks. My question is about international governance of cyberspace and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, which is a subject that has been very important for Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN, but also more broadly in its engagement with the UN framework. More states are now developing cyber capabilities, and more militaries are now developing lethal autonomous weapons. There are a lot of concerns, obviously, about their growing use outside of legal and ethical frameworks. When there's growing distrust in cyberspace and about the uses of these kinds of technologies, and when there's a decline in trust in multilateral mechanisms, how can Malaysia, as well as more broadly ASEAN, make sure that states are held more accountable in cyberspace and the use of lethal autonomous weapons? Thank you.
I'll add one more to the Prime Minister's menu as he writes that question down. Susanna Patton from Australia.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, you mentioned the importance of ASEAN holding its collective strength and unity. There is one ASEAN country that has been particularly on the daily front line of coercion within its exclusive economic zone by a much larger neighbour, China, and that is the Philippines. I'm interested if you think there is anything more that ASEAN could do to show solidarity with Manila.
I think we have 6 or 7 items on your menu. Prime Minister, the floor is.
Now, on the South China Sea, the consensus within ASEAN is UNCLOS, number one. Number two, to define it further, we agreed that there should be a code of conduct. And in 2 years back, I think in the session in Jakarta, Premier Li Qiang made that commitment too. So we have to proceed towards that. That means there has been this sort of understanding. We're working towards that code of conduct to make sure that the explorations, the interests of countries be protected, and other countries, including China or United States or other countries, also respect that parameters. And right now, of course, there is no real clarity on exact point of reference. Now, this relates to even the issue of tension between Philippines and China, although I think, frankly, it's a bit more exaggerated because I've seen my friend, President Bomo Marcos and Li Qiang engaging during the ASEAN meet in Kuala Lumpur. We hope that continues because there is no way out except the engagement between countries, and we do support that position. I've mentioned this to President Bomo Marcos, that the engagement must be more constant and dynamic, so that we should refrain from escalating this sort of tension. It's not easy, but then that has been the consensus within ASEAN, both bilateral and multilateral mechanisms. Now, on Myanmar, after consulting my colleagues, ASEAN, I met both SEC and also NUG prime ministers. And that was a precondition before we continue or enlarge our support for the humanitarian crisis. As I've said, Smart Team Singapore was the first to arrive purely on a humanitarian basis. We, Malaysia, set up even the field hospital there. But the conditions, number one, immediate ceasefire, all sides. Number two, the humanitarian assistance must be given to all without a discrimination. All those two terms were agreed upon, then we proceed. Of course, there have been complaints about incidences of violence, again, the spirit of ceasefire. But we have continued, and I think recently the spirit of ASEAN leaders is to call for continued ceasefire, expanded, and guarantee the safety of all humanitarian personnel and their assistance. And hopefully this would allow for dialogue. We have taken the initiative to invite some groups for dialogue in Kuala Lumpur last month. And I've started, and I call my colleagues to send their teams, officials and military personnel and intelligence to continue to engage. But the parameters are very clear, the 5-point consensus. Now, about the elections, if the elections are fair and more inclusive, you do not exclude parties, then of course we are ready to accept, although it may not be perfect. You can't have sometimes we impose too stringent conditions. And we joke about fair and free elections, and you can ask Al Gore in the 2000 elections. Of course, he would not agree with us, but then that's a position. But at least the broad parameters must be agreed upon. And this I have conveyed personally to the SEC Senior General Prime Minister of SEC and also to the NUG Prime Minister. I do not want to preclude any possibility, but of course, elections is not the priority as far as we're concerned. First is peace and security. Second, humanitarian assistance. Number 3 is, of course, to have build up this consensus and be more inclusive. You can't have, for example, elections if you exclude some parties. Now, from Indonesia, about the cyber space, cyber security, digital transformation, enrichment, and connectivity is all. It has become a major priority among ASEAN officials and leaders. We have announced from part of Malaysia, of course, we have continued. I mean, Singapore began this initiative about the proper adequate legislation much earlier. We have studied these cases, and then we'll be tabling legislations to this effect, and we have also encouraged member countries to do likewise to accelerate the process. Now, on the tariff, our consensus again, the trade ministers met and the finance ministers, we say no retaliatory tariffs. It will not work. It is better to listen and to engage. Bilaterally, countries have gone, but as ASEAN, we say, look, we have to have a consensus so that no decisions or recommendations come at the expense of any other partner. But the best method is still engagement. Nobody is certain what the final outcome will be, so it is better to be engaged, and the initial engagement, even from the engagement, even from the Malaysian MITI